Hi, this is Stephanie Miller from The Stephanie Miller Show. Please enjoy this exclusive clip from my show on Political Voices Network.
So, anything new?
Yeah, well, let's start with Ukraine since I just played Mitch McConnell. I obviously, Mike Johnson, somebody said the intelligence he saw must have been scary AF. For him to, to turn and, go against Moscow, what are we calling her? Moscow Madge, Marjorie Taylor Greene and others in their little treason caucus, and finally get some aid to Ukraine, right? That you've been screaming about forever, right?
Yeah, well, I have a vested interest in what happens in Ukraine. I've fought in Ukraine on the side of the Ukrainians. I have people in the units in combat now. So to me, it's personal. But to Moscow Mike, I'm not so sure he had a religious epiphany by CIA Director Bill Burns giving him the lowdown on what would happen with Russia. I think it's a little simpler than that. The 61 or 62 billion dollars that's going to Ukraine is clearly a very, very large chunk of that is going to U.S. weapons manufacturers, particularly in, I think, Alabama, Arkansas, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, where they produce artillery shells, light infantry fighting vehicles, and precision munitions like the Patriot missile system. Same with the money going to Israel. That kind of money talks when you're talking about coming into Congress.
Yeah.
You just cannot ignore your constituents who are the billionaires who are telling you, you really need to vote for this. This money's being spent in America.
Malcolm, and also, as you know, I am not a conspiracy theorist. However, everything you've ever said about Trump, Russia, turned out to be true, that you tried to warn us about before 2016. I mean, there are reports that Trump is conducting this shadow presidency, talking to Netanyahu, talking to Putin, talking to MBS. I wouldn't be surprised if he was like, oh, don't worry, Putin, help me get installed again in 2024 and I'll just give Ukraine to you. I mean, I'm suspicious of anything this Republican Party does right now, aren't you?
Well, you should be suspicious because they have done everything that they said they were going to do, and they've done everything we said they were hiding from us and were going to do. So they're a very easy read in that respect. So Trump is conducting a shadow presidency. People have already seen it. Their world leaders have already come to Mar-a-Lago. We had Viktor Orban down there. And I really do think that what I wrote in my 2018 book, The Plot to Destroy the Democracy, about the axis of autocracies.
Yeah.
It's a real thing.
Well,
they have an alliance together and they want to support each other.
Yeah. And also, Malcolm, I've got to get your take on, this trial going on in New York this week, because I just keep saying it keeps echoing everything you said about 2016 and all of the, effery that we didn't know is going on. I mean, imagine all the things that happened in Trump Tower. You wrote about the Trump Tower meeting with the Russians to collude, to illegally interfere in the election. This whole National Enquirer, catch and kill, hush money scheme was hatched in. I was saying, I wish that Obama did wiretap Trump Tower, because imagine what we don't know. Right? But I mean, this is blatant election interference, right?
Absolutely. I mean, nothing frustrates me more than understanding that the American people have had an entire presidency hidden behind their backs for one reason. The news media was insanely lazy, just insanely lazy. They bought into Trump's intimidation. They bought into the game when he would shout at them. They bought into every lie. And now when I watch television in the morning, I hear people literally spouting things that I was called a conspiracy theorist about, and you were called a conspiracy theorist about, and, other pundits who were shouting this back in 2017, 18, 19, and 20, that now you have, Morning Joe is literally speaking like plot to destroy democracy or plot to hack America, and with clear knowledge that Trump is an unmitigated danger. Even Maggie Habermas saying that. But it took them 8 years to get there.
Well,
and democracy can't last that long.
You're absolutely right. Is that they just ate up these stories. I was Tristan Snell, our legal lad, because I just thought this is so interesting. Everything we've forgotten that happened in 2016. But he said Hillary Clinton, Ben Carson, Ted Cruz, all could have defamation claims against Trump and the Inquirer now. How weren't the defamatory statements 7 and 9 years ago? The discovery rule, statute of limitations clock, does not start until plaintiffs discovered their claims. Oops. So they would have a claim. But I mean, when you think, Malcolm, of the amount of effery that Hillary Clinton endured between WikiLeaks and Russia and the National Enquirer and, as you say, the mainstream media, and still won by 3 million votes, it is really astounding that we find ourselves where we are today, isn't it?
Well, I think you're using the wrong technical term. It's not just effery, it's rat effery, right? Yeah. Where these dirty tricks were engineered by the Trump campaign. And I think you have hit the nail on the head, you and Tristan Snell. I really think that people can actually file true defamation lawsuits where she can claim the damage that she suffered was the loss of an election based on the fact that they engineered the news media. They engineered lies. They engineered stories. You know, I remember that Hillary Clinton close to death in September of 2016, and the news media took the National Enquirer and the Trump story campaign and ran with it everywhere.
Yeah.
Right?
And meanwhile,
if I were her, I'd go for $100 million.
Yeah, she's busy doing back handsprings in the woods in Chappaqua now. But, you know, but it really is so, I'm sort of re-infuriated, you know, by all of it, because you're absolutely right. And the funny thing is, you know, disinformation, the term fake news, that was almost invented by Russia, right? I mean, the stories about Hillary Clinton, Ted Cruz, yada, yada, were fake. The stories about Donald Trump that were killed were true. He was the one running the fake news operation, right?
Absolutely. And again, the press just ate it up and they ran with it themselves. This is where we need to have a reinvigoration of what we used to call the news media. But if you look at the way David Pecker operated most of the time, it's sort of the way that the highest level leadership at national news works. NBC News, for example, NBC Universal is run by a conservative. Mm-hmm. CNN was owned by a conservative. And they may not do deliberate catch and kill stories, but they can place emphasis on silliness as opposed to actual facts.
Yeah.
And that can be even more dangerous. The Russian term is disinformatia, right? Disinformation. Well, there's disinformation, which is where it's true, half true, partly lies. But there's also misinformation where they lead you in another direction on the basis of what could be fact, but they don't expose you to all the facts. Yeah. And then there's just outright lies. And we saw that the Trump campaign mastered that because they knew the news media would enjoy working on those lies rather than go out and hunt for the truth.
Let me explain why I'm wearing an AOC Ilhan Omar squad shirt, because I appreciated Ilhan Omar, despite any differences with the president on Gaza. When she was asked, are you supporting President Biden? She did not hesitate a nanosecond. She said, absolutely, our democracy is on the line. AOC said something similar. Charlotte Clymer tweeted, sorry, let me get this straight. Some of the far left is angry at Representative AOC because she understands that Trump and the GOP would be magnitudes worse for innocent civilians in Gaza, and thus she's pragmatically supporting President Biden. Do these folks love being out of power? And I further, Malcolm, you know, I so appreciate, we had Dean Obeidallah, who, as you know, is Palestinian, on a couple days ago, and he tweeted, there is no place for anti-Jewish hate in support of Palestinian humanity. If you're an anti-Semite, do not support Palestinians because we do not want you. Please protest Netanyahu's brutal war crimes, his killing of thousands of Palestinian women and children, his collective punishment of 2 million people in Gaza, but do not target Jews for their faith. Mehdi Hassan said, let's be clear, if you're attacking or abusing Jews for being Jews, for their clothing, language, customs, or ethnicity, you're an awful person. You're a bigot, you're an anti-Semite, and you are no friend of Palestine or the Palestinians. I really appreciate those voices, because I feel like this is what the president has been trying this is the line he's been trying to walk, isn't it?
Sure. And came out and made a very, very forceful statement yesterday of saying essentially that the college protests that are going on, we respect your right to free speech, but there cannot be, disruption, attacks on individuals, attacks on race, ethnicity, or language or nationality, just because you have a situation that you would like to protest. I say this 100 times because I know you get as much grief about me as I get on my Twitter feed. I spent 40 years, other than being in Ukraine, protecting the Muslim people, fighting alongside of them, against the worst elements of terrorism in the world. But you know what I don't do? I don't judge people on the basis of whether they're a Muslim or whether they're a Christian or whether they're a Jew. I've been around all of them in Israel and the West Bank and every other country in the Middle East. We have to respect people for who they are. American Jews are Americans, all right? Jews anywhere in the world are just people, all right? If you don't respect what Netanyahu's doing, protest against Netanyahu. I'll be out there with you. There are big protests in Tel Aviv every day.
Yeah.
But you cannot attack individuals for what they wear on their head, which day that they pray in the week, which God that they pray to, Hindu, Muslim, deist, or whatever have you. All of you, people should be exercising restraint and being and letting the better angels of your American values rise to the top. I have been around some of these protests on campus. There are open calls to support terrorist groups. There are open calls to attack Jews as individuals. Yeah. That is just wrong. Yeah. And you will find yourself on the receiving end of a material support to terrorism charge if you start behaving the way people did when they were supporting ISIS. You can't support Hamas openly in the United States. You can in word, but not in deed, by attacking people.
Well, let me just say, I will get tweets saying, I can't believe you had that genocide supporter Malcolm Nance on again. But I also got a tweet a couple days ago.
Tell him to get a dictionary, for Christ's sake.
I got a tweet a couple days ago saying, I can't believe you're having that genocide supporter Dean Obadallah on, who hates the Palestinians.
What?
So they're just, people are confused. They're very confused.
Dean Obadallah's family is in the West.
It doesn't matter.
Even as we speak.
It doesn't matter. It's social media.